Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome back to our 15th segment of Ask the Attorney. Our attorney is here, I promise. She just went to turn on a light.
I
There
was
she
just
is.
stepping away. Sorry about that.
And if you are new to this is a series we've been doing for, gosh, a few months
6 months,
now.
maybe. Yeah, I think we
It's been a
started in
while. Yep,
November.
with
Yeah.
Mary Ann Wehr. She is an estate planning attorney here in Northern Michigan. So, Mary Ann, it's actually been a few weeks since we've been able to hop on here and do one of these segments.
I know we've both been busy, but I didn't do the coolest thing that you did. How was the draft?
The draft was amazing. It was just one of the coolest environments I've ever been in. Like everyone was just so happy. It was a beautiful day in downtown Detroit. There were so many people and it was, oh gosh, it was just amazing. It was, yeah.
That's cool.
Words don't even describe how cool it was.
I saw a couple of reports that you did, and you were just like so happy. I was so happy.
My energy was showing, that's for sure. I went back and watched. I'm like, I probably shouldn't have been like bouncing around so much, but I was just so happy to be there and to be covering such an awesome event and like just seeing the city of Detroit so lively. I was thrilled. I was over the moon.
I love Detroit. Yep. So that's good. So I wanted to just, yeah. So that's cool. And then
you've been busy as well.
Yep. I've been busy, which is great. And I had a couple of conflicts. So yeah, it's been a few weeks since we've done one of these.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to be back. Yeah. Yep.
Absolutely.
Glad to be back.
So today we're going to be talking about estate planning for blended families. And I'm sure this is a topic that a lot of people can relate to these days. I know I am part of a blended family and it's so common these days.
Oh, it is. It's almost like the traditional family is uncommon, right? I mean, it's a smaller percentage of people, I believe. And of course, a blended family is a family where there's been a remarriage, whether there was a death and in the family and then a mom or dad remarried after that death, or a divorce. Mom and dad remarried, after that divorce. So, and I think we all know I'm also part of a blended family. And I think we all know it comes with a lot of joy, but it comes with its own amount of challenges as well. So, and it does definitely, it doesn't challenge the estate planning process, but the estate planning process, I think, is really super important for folks from like couples with blended families.
Sure. So, tonight we're going to be focusing on the challenges of estate planning for blended families. But before we get into that, I want to remind all of you watching that if you have any questions for Mary Ann about this topic or just any estate planning questions, you can leave a comment below and we will take a few breaks here and there to answer your comments. But Mary Ann, I don't know where you want to start with this. What are some challenges?
I know there are challenges. So if you think about coming together, like two people coming together with their own families, I think the tendency is to favor your own children, or at least want to make sure that your own children are taken care of in the way that your loved one, your former spouse, wanted that done, especially if there's been a death with the former spouse. And, at various stages in life, people come together and create blended families. It could be when they're very, very young. It could be when the, mom or dad is getting older and there's different challenges at each stage. But when you're very young, think about the fact that maybe neither partner has had a lot of time to build much wealth. They're coming together almost as a first marriage, and whatever they build, they're building together. And so they, in their hearts and souls, I have found they want to be very fair to the children of both marriages. And maybe they also have a child of their own between them, but they want to be very fair, but really getting down to what is that fairness? And people start to think, well, not think, but assess and analyze what might be coming to the child from a former spouse, an ex-spouse, ex-spouse's family. And sometimes there's disparity there. So there might be two families coming together that couple building their own estate or their own life, and one side of the family may be more fortunate in the area of having more assets than the other side. And that can challenge people too, because they feel like they want to be fair to everyone. And what is fair to the children that are not going to get as much from their in-laws, it kind of comes into the question. So there are a lot of for blended family estate planning. And I'm sorry, I don't have my usual microphone. So if I'm not clear, just let me know. But there are a lot of tools, and a lot of that has to do with planning with trusts, with, certain trusts. So if two people come into a marriage and they both have their own property, maybe they had their own house and other investments, it is not uncommon for that couple own revocable trust with its own rules. Mm-hmm. And maybe there would be a joint trust. So there might be 3 trusts created by this family. But if the spouse's trusts, the reason they would put their property into the trust and keep it separate, they would still use it together, but they would keep it separate, is because they are focusing on their children. So oftentimes they allow, if they were to die, they would allow their spouse complete use of everything that's in that trust. So their spouse can get income, can live in the house, can, basically use it just as they would have in life. But then when that surviving spouse dies, what's left in that trust goes to the original person's kids. If that makes any sense, kind of, because when you get married, you intend to share your bounty, right? You intend to unify, and that allows them to unify, yet kind of keep a segment separate to go to certain kids. Or so that is a helpful tool. It's a little confusing to talk about here, but it is
a diagram to break it all down.
Sometimes I wish we just had a whiteboard, Yeah, because but it does allow for kind of doing everything you want to do, protecting your spouse, allowing them an income from your assets, and then sending the residual to your kids when your spouse is done with it. That, interestingly enough, is also a tool used by couples, just everyday couples who have been married forever, but they know that at some point when one of them dies, they'd like to put everything into a trust, into something that can't be changed as easily, and allow the spouse complete use and income from it, but protect it from a second marriage or a marriage later in life. So the assets can be used, but they're still protected, again, for the planning of that particular couple. And that's a very effective tool as well. It protects, and it even is used not necessarily to protect against a second marriage or a later marriage. It can be used knowing that as people, we've talked about this before on our program here, as people get older, they start to doubt their judgment a little bit more. And at times they become a little more susceptible to the next greatest thing. Somebody might stop by and you need new windows. Did you notice you needed new windows? And people will buy new windows, or might not have been a great example. But if you have the money kind of set aside for their use, but they can't just dip in and get it all, it protects them from predators too as they get older. Sure. So, and it can actually work well in like a Medicaid planning program as well, because that money that's sitting in that trust is really not theirs. They can get use of it. So there's a lot of uses for protecting assets after the death of the first person, whether it's a blended family or not a blended family. So there's a lot of tools available to an estate planning attorney to assist a person a couple who wants to, like look down the road and think of all of the things that can happen in a person's life and try to protect at least assets for that.
Sure. So can people plan before they get married?
In a remarriage situation, is that yeah, they can. And that's really a good time to talk about, okay, we're coming together. You have yours, I have mine. And I have my assets, you have your assets. You also have your children, I also have my children. And what do we want to do with our coming together with our money and our assets? Do we want to just blend them together and make them one? And if we do, how do we want that to be distributed? So there is something called a prenuptial agreement, where people really can plan in advance for upon the other's death, what's going to happen with the property. So I've seen agreements where the recognition is, you have your money, I have my money, we use it together. But when you die, your money goes to your kids, or your money, can go into a trust. So it really helps kind of solidify. In two cases, people often think of a prenuptial as being protection against divorce, but it is also used in death. So it can again be a tool to protect a person's what their wishes and intentions are for their children. So that's why I think of it as a tool for a blended family.
Yeah.
Where I've seen it used, in a few ways, but one is when a person is getting married later in life. Two 75-year-old people decide to get married. Well, they're pretty well set in what they want for their children and what they have. So that's a good time for a prenuptial, just to say, hey, when we get married, we're going to live as one. When I die, this is what's going to happen to my property. Mm-hmm. It's just good conversations to have, so there's no surprises. And also, I think it gives peace of mind to the next generation, to the children.
Definitely.
Yeah. So they're not thinking, oh, great, now that guy's children are going to have my mother's money, or whatever can go through. And those are things that can cause rift, right, between blended families.
Right. So is distributing an estate more challenging for blended families?
I think it is. If there's not a plan, right? So if there's not a plan, then I think it is definitely more challenging. And there are things that can help with that. But, if you think of blended families, often there's rivalries within any family, more pronounced with a blended family, I think. But very clear estate planning can diffuse the situation that can sometimes become combative. So one of the tools that really, I think, helps in long-term planning is to say, maybe each of us should buy a life insurance policy, and at least part of that policy should go to, part of my policy should go to my children if I die, and part of your policy should go to your children if you die. So in that scenario, the children are receiving something from my death. So it's not, it diffuses this feeling of, oh, great, now I have to. Now, people don't always expect inheritance, so I'm kind of talking like they do. But if there's a sense that you have to wait for your inheritance and it doesn't feel fair to you, the life insurance premium, policy can certainly help make those children feel more comfortable. Mm-hmm.
So is the life insurance policy the only tool?
No, I don't think it's the only tool. Yeah. So the other tools I think I've talked a little bit about, but the trust that you can set up for the surviving spouse. And the children know when the surviving spouse is done with that trust, the money is coming to them, that nothing can change that. So nobody can divert it to their children, to a future marriage, or to a future predator. So I think that real effective planning using these tools will protect both spouses, at least peace of mind and comfort within both spouses and the children, to know that well, mom and dad are trying, they're recognizing this, that there could be a concern, and they're trying to take care of us to the best that they can, to keep that concern at bay. Um, oftentimes in blended families, there's very close relationships between both siblings' children, and there's close relationships like with both parents. It's not always combative, but when it comes to an inheritance and an estate plan, it can become a little more quicker than, it's, of course, we've seen examples, right, of other combative situations that occur. So I still maintain, even in a blended family, that using the mechanism of a trust and not expecting things to go through probate that alone, without a life insurance policy, will make things much smoother. There's less chance of elongated, or less chance of lawsuits and that type of thing. So again, just continuing the process of avoiding probate.
Right.
Yeah.
So when a person remarries and then one of the spouses gets ill, is there a way to shelter resources?
Yeah, I think, when we're talking about that, it was thinking about like long-term care. So when people get very elderly, they've remarried and they become elderly, and one of them goes into a nursing home, they may have created a prenuptial that directs how the money is going to go upon their death. Mm-hmm. They may have directed what would happen with their property upon divorce, but they cannot direct what's going to happen with their property upon a new spouse getting ill and needing to go to a nursing home. So again, if planning occurs early, like in the first marriage, and there is this plan of putting assets into a trust that the spouse can still use the house, can still sell the house, can still buy a new house, can get income from the assets, but they're sitting in a protected spot in this irrevocable trust that is not going to get swept up into long-term care cost. So there's some tools there to keep long-term money from the first marriage out of the second marriage long-term care, because it becomes owned by the trust, not the person. So, these are really complex topics, and I think really what I'm trying to accomplish tonight, even though I know that I'll bet nobody is understanding everything I'm saying because I'm talking about all these trusts and protecting assets. But what my point that I'm trying to really make is that solid estate planning with a blended family is a really good tool. And even estate planning, even before you even would ever consider that there's going to be a blended family, if there's a death, it's a very good tool too, because you can protect the longevity of your assets and still allow your surviving spouse to use them. Right. So it's just kind of trying to plug that blended families are more challenging, drives really the higher need for estate planning. But I will also tell you that because they are challenging emotionally, these are not easy decisions. I don't think it's easy to say to your spouse, well, I want my kids to get my stuff and not your kids. I don't think those are easy conversations.
Yeah.
So And there's got to be a middle road or a compromise. And like I said in the beginning, oftentimes it's not my kids and your kids and my stuff and your stuff. It's you built what you have together, and you just happen to have children from other relationships. So they're not easy topics. But if you're looking to make things a little easier on your family, a little more coordinated, and add some protection, some asset protection for a surviving spouse, you can do it. And it's just a good plan. But
So you said that these are not easy conversations to have. A lot of things related to estate planning, they can be hard conversations. Do you have any advice for families on how to bring this up, how to start talking about this?
yeah, I do. I really think, first of all, it's not a family meeting. It's a discussion between the partners, the two people that are in the relationship. And just to talk about what is their goal, what are their goals and objectives for what happens if you die? What do you want to happen? Do you want to give anything to the kids at that time? Or oftentimes people don't have that kind of money. I mean, they need what they have to work through. But I think it's a conversation, and it's probably not just in one evening. It's probably, we should start to think about how we want to handle the inheritance to our children. And the conversation might be easier when two people are coming together and they each have pretty decent assets. So now you've got the two trust situations, and you can kind of funnel the cash. But I do just think it's one of those couples should communicate about it, because it's part of caring for one another. In the event that one of you passes away, the other children are going to need some additional understanding and emotional care. And just having things set up will help ease what is going to be natural tension between the surviving spouse and the other spouse's children.
Right.
And so it really is a matter of caring very deeply for both your spouse and your children, and wanting to help them not unnecessarily come to blows, I guess, is the best way to say it.
And it seems like that's really the case for any sort of estate planning, not just for blended families, but for everyone. It's a hard thing to talk about, but really you're making the lives of your loved ones so much easier when you are gone, because then they don't have to fight about who gets what. You have a plan, and that's something that they then don't have to worry about when they are going through one of the hardest things of losing a loved one.
That's absolutely correct. That's absolutely correct. So that storyline carries through. Doesn't matter at what age, what stage, how many marriages, how few marriages, if there's a marriage, that line carries through. Just making it easier, making it predictable, keeping your family as much as you can out of conflict. They know you've made the decisions, and they can't really go against those decisions, not easily. And I have a lawyer friend who just says, I want to keep everybody out of court and out of conflict. And what they mean is no probate court, and I don't want the families to fight over, at a time where they're feeling so much anxiety. Because I'll tell you, I never would have pictured kind of the change in a personality that occurs when you're feeling that grief and anxiety. Almost, for me, there was almost some level of paranoia. There's also some level of, just one more thing I need to deal with. It's like, it's just having that period of time move easily. I think I did a new commercial. It's going to be coming out Monday. It's really cool. But in it, I say, just have a plan so that your family knows what you want, they can, get through your loss and move on with their life. And that's really what you want. So, yeah, I thought that was a pretty effective message that commercial was putting out there.
Yeah. Well, Mary Ann, is there anything else that you want to say about estate planning for blended families?
Not really. Just it is extremely important. It's important for everybody. This is an area where it is definitely a little more complex, but very, very important. So,
and again, I'm sure this is something that so many people can relate to.
I think so too. I don't know the statistics, but it's got to be very, very high, very high. If over 50% of marriages end in divorce, well, then over 50% of families,
right?
Yeah, and then there's deaths, and then there's people who never were married in their first relationship, but now they're married. Well, that's a blended family as well. There's like my daughter-in-law will be part. My grandson will be part of a blended family.
Yeah,
and and I'm very pleased about that because he'll have that family, but it still brings with it some of those complexities that they're going to have to plan for.
Sure. Well, Mary Ann, thanks so much for providing all of this super important information, as you always do every time we meet. But again, I really think that this is probably a topic that hits home for so many people. And I'm surprised that we haven't really mentioned this before. So it was good that we had this opportunity to go into depth about this specific topic.
Yep. As I was thinking about what are the topics we haven't talked about, I was like, oh my gosh. I was looking at my list of topics. I was like, I can't believe it. I can't believe we haven't talked about this one. And maybe that highlights what a difficult topic it is. Because, coming from a blended family, maybe it just highlights that it's a difficult topic.
Yeah.
But a necessary one to kind of face head on.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, thanks so much, Mary Ann, for being here. And thank you so much for joining us on our 15th Ask the Attorney segment. Hard to believe we're already at 15.
Hard to believe 15. And had we not missed a couple, we'd be even further. So, but I hope people are enjoying them. Love the questions that come in, and see you next time.
Yeah. And before we go, I just want to kind of remind everyone that if there's a certain topic that you want to know more about, we have covered a lot of different topics over the past 15 segments. So you can go to our Up North Live Facebook page and search Ask the Attorney, and all of the topics and segments will come up. So you can always go back and rewatch things. You can also always ask us a question to ask Mary Ann at any point. You can send an email to our newsroom, which is just newsroom@upnorthlive.com. And then we will get to your questions at our next segment. And lastly, I also want to say that if you do want to reach out to Mary Ann directly, in the description, I have her phone number and her website. So you can contact her directly too if you would like to do that. But I think that is all my little messages I wanted to get out before we go. So thank you again, Mary Ann. Thank you folks so much for watching. Have a great rest of your week and a great Mother's Day weekend. And we'll see you next time on Ask the Attorney.
Sounds great. Thanks, Maya. Bye, everyone.
Bye.